back, and I now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Representative Pallone, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since Secretary Kennedy last testified before this committee in June, our nation's entire healthcare system has been driven into chaos thanks to his actions and the actions of Republicans here in Congress. Healthcare is less accessible and less affordable thanks to the trillion-dollar healthcare cuts in the big ugly bill that Republicans jammed through last summer to pay for giant tax cuts for the wealthy, and Republicans' refusal to extend the ACA enhanced premium tax credits. Americans' health, particularly our children's health, is at risk because of Secretary Kennedy's complete upheaval of our nation's vaccine infrastructure and the endless barrage of misinformation spewed to push the Secretary's ideological agenda. And this administration actively worked with Congress to pass the big ugly bill. You can't cut $1 trillion without dramatically impacting the care Americans receive. 15 million Americans are expected to lose their health care coverage, forcing people to once again rely on emergency rooms for care and leaving millions of Americans buried in medical debt. Medicare is also cut by hundreds of billions of dollars, reducing access to care for seniors. It strips states of funding to provide health care to their lowest income residents and shutters hospitals and nursing homes, especially those in rural and underserved areas. And as a result of this Republican cruelty, we're watching in real time as hospitals and health clinics are closing at a rapid rate while states are being forced to slash payments to providers, raise out-of-pocket costs, and cut benefits. And the Trump administration and congressional Republicans drove up monthly health care premiums for more than 24 million Americans at the beginning of this year because they refused to extend the ACA enhanced premium tax credits. People have seen monthly premiums double or triple, leaving some people with no choice but to go without health insurance altogether. And now there are reports that Republicans, through further reconciliation initiatives, intend to make further cuts and take health care away from more people to pay for Trump's reckless war of choice in Iran. In Trump's America, we can't afford health care, but apparently we can spend $1 billion a day in a war with Iran. In fact, Trump himself said that it's not possible for the federal government to pay for Medicaid and Medicare when we're fighting wars. Now, the chaos does not end with skyrocketing costs and coverage losses. Secretary Kennedy is creating chaos and confusion in our nation's vaccine policy. Your hand-picked anti-vaccine members of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices altered recommendations for multiple vaccines, including measles, hepatitis B, and COVID. These actions left patients, healthcare providers, and parents confused about what vaccines were recommended, when, and whether they would be covered by their insurance. And the uncertainty drove skepticism and made it harder for people to access vaccines that can keep themselves and their families healthy. At the same time, the Trump administration has frozen or terminated millions of billions of dollars in scientific research grants and funding, halting ongoing clinical trials to find the next generation of treatments and cures. You know, Republicans preached for years on this committee about their concerns regarding protecting pharmaceutical innovation, but it's quite ironic they're noticeably quiet now as we watch the United States get left behind as the global leader in medical research thanks to their own administration's actions. And Mr. Secretary, you are presiding over one of the most consequential departments within the federal government. And this is no small job, but unfortunately, your actions are dangerous to health care in our country. And it's going to take decades to repair the damage that you've done. So finally, I want to mention your unprecedented obstruction of congressional oversight and your refusal to respond to our inquiries or requests over the last year. The radical transparency that you talked about from the very beginning of your time as secretary, even before, that radical transparency that you promised appears to have been an empty promise. And I expect you to fully and respectfully answer the questions of the Democratic members of this committee today and to respond to all written requests that we have sent you in the past. There's so many, I haven't gotten responses to any of them. But with that, Madam Chair, I yield back the balance of my time.